In this video we will be doing on rate of photosynthesis the questions, okay? And we will see some of the factors affecting photosynthesis. Now, one of the things that requires you to be really good at for this kind of question is data interpretation and figuring out how many marks does the question have, and according to those marks answering. Okay, this has 3 marks, just giving there. So just answering according to how many marks the question has. So for example, this question number 8A shows figure 8.1 shows the result from 2 experiments carried out to investigate the effect of light intensity and carbon dioxide concentration on the rate of photosynthesis. So we have 2. Wait, now here it says describe and explain the result shown in figure 8.1 for experiment 1. So the first thing, we just have to talk about experiment 1, just about this curve here. Okay, we just have to talk about this curve. So let's just talk about it. Let's just start talking about it. I mean, let's find out everything we can. So the first thing we can see is the rate increases, okay, with light intensity up to this one here, this 2.8, up to the light intensity of 2.8, yeah. And at this point, I mean, the rate increases up to 3, and then light intensity is no longer limiting. This is the same thing we came across over here. So over here, then light is no longer limiting. Therefore, even if you increase light intensity, the rate of photosynthesis will not increase, because there are some other factors limiting in this particular point. Okay, so for this experiment 1, so that's the first thing. Okay, you should write after 3. Okay, after 3, light no longer limiting, right? No longer limiting. We have some other things limiting. That's the first thing. And then other thing, you can say that, okay, the rate at lower rates of photosynthesis, the light intensity, or at lower light intensities, the rate of photosynthesis is directly, or the rate of photosynthesis is proportional to the increase in light intensity. If light intensity increases, the same way the rate of photosynthesis increases as well. Okay, so there is a direct proportionality before reaching the point, the 3 point. Okay, so we have explained this point, and then here the rate is constant after 3 because the light intensity is not limiting any longer. And okay, so there are 2 things we mentioned, and you have to quote the data. And what does the marking scheme say? At low light intensity, the rate of photosynthesis increases as the light intensity increases. So light intensity is the limiting factor. At higher light intensities, graph levels of forms a plateau, rate becomes constant. So carbon dioxide, some other factors becomes limiting. Now, the only thing we may have varied our answer is the way to answer it, I mean the format. But we had both the points. We should sort of do the following. We should start saying what we can see, what we can see. We start with what, then we should go on how, why. Okay, why or how. That's the rule here. So start saying that what you can see, at low light intensity, what you can see is, we can see that the rate is we can see that an increase in photosynthesis creates an increase in light intensity. So the rate of photosynthesis is directly proportional to the light intensity. And then after this in higher light intensities, we can see that the rate is constant. Okay, we can see that it has formed a plateau. Okay, that all you can see in what you can see, you should write. And then why or how, you should write it down that this is in plateau probably because the light intensity is no longer limiting, and rather there are other factors, example the amount of carbon dioxide and some other factors limiting instead of light intensity. So hope that was clear. This was the question number Roman 1 to get the 3 marks. These 3 marks are very precious marks, and to get them is very, you have to be very smart. I mean, you have to include everything that the question wants. Okay, then you should go to the describe and explain the difference between the results for experiment 1 and experiment 2. This also contains 3 marks. Now the difference between experiment 1 and experiment 2. We can see our experiment 1 is going a straight line and then it curves out here, and this one straight line and this curves out here. So both at lower light intensity, for both the light increases as the light intensity increase creates a rate of photosynthesis increase at lower light intensities. Okay, the plateau, that was the first point. Okay, that actually rate is proportional to light intensity. That's the first point you should write for Roman 2. Okay, for Roman 2. Then you can go to the second point. Second point, you should write that plateaus. Okay, you should write the difference of plateau, or where it becomes constant. So it seems like when the carbon dioxide concentration is high in experiment 2, what we can see is the plateau is the plateau, or the point where the rate becomes constant is higher than the point where rate becomes constant in experiment 1. In experiment 2 is higher than experiment 1. Then you should write why. Okay, then in why you can write probably because there are other factors, then the amount of carbon dioxide is more. That's why. That's the reason. Okay, those are 2 things we have noticed. Then the third thing we should notice is this one. This is, don't take this simply just like that. We can see that actually there is a point where these 2 are together. Okay, so we should also note this. You say that around from 0 to around the rate at 1.5, or from up to the light intensity of 1. Okay, up to the light intensity of 1. Well, let me just keep the plateaus here so you can be sure about what the points really wanted. Okay, plateaus. Okay, the up to the light intensity of 1, light intensity of 1. Okay, the rates are similar. The change in rate of photosynthesis is same for experiment 1 and experiment 2. Okay, so we can say that up to this point, why? Now we said what, now we should say why. Probably because carbon dioxide is not yet limiting. At this point carbon dioxide is not yet limiting. That's why the rate is the same. So those are 3 things we got. Okay, now let's see what does the marking scheme say. It says that above light intensity 1, rate is always higher for experiment 2. Okay, plateau reached at lower light intensity for experiment 1. This is the point we mentioned. Maximum plateau rate is double for experiment 2. Okay, we see that this one plateau for experiment 2 is double. Okay, then when the plateau for this light intensity 1 becomes Now when we mention about plateaus, we should write some qualitative, some quantitative values. We should read some values here. Okay, these values will get us marks. Okay, this 1, 3, we should be writing them, because the examiner wants to know that you actually are considering the question they gave you. You're just not writing like that. Okay, so hope that was clear. And as you see here, except in experiment 2 has much more carbon dioxide compared to 1. Carbon dioxide no longer limiting after 4.2 in experiment 2. After 4.2 is no longer limiting. Okay, so for this one is no longer limiting at 0.4, while here is at no longer limiting at 0.04. So whatever the case is, you probably got the concept that how to actually solve this kind of questions. Hope that was helpful, and I'll see you in the next video. Thank you for listening.